Hi class, today we are going to start chapter number 4 of your textbook, Loops and Files. Please read this chapter before watching this video. Before we start loops, let's take a look at increment and decrement operators. There are some scenarios where a variable must simply be incremented, which means increased by 1, or decremented, which means decreased by 1. And here you can see some examples. Number equals number plus 1, that's how we increment, right? And number equals number minus 1, that's how we decrement variable by 1. Let's take a look at some example here. For example, I have variable x. I will say it's 2. Now, if I want to increment it by 1, it will be x equals x plus 1. So now my x is 3. And the same with decrement. X equals x minus 1. It means I will decrement it by 1. And now it's 2 again. Java provides some short ways to increment and decrement a variable's value. Using the plus plus or minus minus operators, this task can be completed quickly. So, you see number plus plus is the same as number equals number plus 1. And number minus minus, that's how we decrement. It's the same as number equals number minus 1. And here you can see some other options, which is plus plus number and minus minus number. So let's take a look at the difference. When an increment or decrement are the only operations in a statement, there is no difference between prefix and postfix notation. So it means those guys are the same. Number plus plus and plus plus number, it's exactly the same. And number minus minus and minus minus number are exactly the same. But when we use it in an expression, prefix notation indicates that the variable will be incremented or decremented prior to the rest of the equation being evaluated. And postfix notation indicates that variable will be incremented or decremented after the rest of the equation has been evaluated. Just let's take a look at some example here. So we have integer x assigned and it's 4. And we print x plus plus. So basically what's going to happen, first is going to print 4 and then our x will become 5. And another example is here. So it was postfix. And another example is here. X is 4 and we print plus plus x. It means first x will become 5 and then it will print 5. And here's some more examples. Let's see. So x plus plus x, which is prefix. You see, it's 3, it became 3. But if I put x plus plus, it will be 3, and then if I want to print x, it will become 4. And the same, exactly the same with decreasing. Let's see, minus minus x, it will print 3 right away. And x minus minus, it will be still 3, but when you print it, it will become 2. In last chapter, you were introduced to control structures, and loop is also a control structure that causes a statement or group of statements to repeat. So it's part of the program that repeats. And Java provides 3 different looping structures: while loop, do while loop, and for loop. And we will start with while loop. And here you can see how it looks like. While keyword, condition, and here's some condition to be evaluated, like you had with if statements, and then you have some statement. So while the condition is true, the statements will execute repeatedly. The while loop is a pretest loop, which means that it will test the value of the condition prior to executing the loop. Let's take a look here. Care must be taken to set the condition to false somewhere, so the loop can stop, because at some point you want to stop your loop or exit the loop. Loops that do not end are called infinite loops. A while loop executes 0 or more times. If the condition is false, the loop will not execute. So we can see some Boolean expression here, and if this condition is true, then execute this statement. And it goes here again, and so on. So it's looping. But if this condition is false, it just exit the loop. Let's take a look at how while loop works. I'm going to create a program. I will name it while loop example. Of course, we are going to have a main method. Always the same. So we start while loop with while keyword. While. In parentheses, you are going to have your condition or Boolean expression. Inside those brackets, you will have some statement. So while loop contains of 3 parts: start, end, and increment. So you need to start your loop somehow, somewhere. Usually it's 1 or 0. So integer I, let's do 1. So I need to stop somewhere. It's my condition or my Boolean expression. So I will say if I less or equals, let's say 5. You do something, some statement here, whatever you want to do. For example, let's say I want to print I. Let's see if it's going to work. I'm going to compile it, run, and that's what I get. So what actually happens here? It just prints 1. That's what we wanted? No, because it's going to crash at some point. So that's why it never stops. Why it never stops? Because we never increment it. So we need to increment our I with each iteration. And that's how we do it, I++. So again, I++ is the same as I plus 1. You remember? So let's try it now. Compile, run, and it will print 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And let's take a look what actually happens here. Let's see what actually happens with our program and with while loop with each iteration. So first we start when integer I is 1 and we start while loop. Is 1 less or equals 5? True or false? It's true. It means it goes inside while loop and prints I, which is in our case it's 1. Then it increments I by 1. So I plus 1 will be 2, correct? 1 plus 1 is 2. So it goes back here and checks this condition again. Is 2 less or equals 5? Yes, true. So print I, and at this point I is 2. So output will be 2. And we can see it here. So then it increments by 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. So 1 is done, it comes back to while loop, to our condition. But this time our I is 3. So 3 is less or equals 5? True. So it prints I, which is 3. And we can see it here in our output. And then it increments by 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. So it goes here again to check this condition. Is 4 less or equals 5? True. So it prints I, which is 4, and then it increments by 1. 4 plus 1 is 5. It goes here. 5 is less or equals 5? True. So it goes inside while loop and prints I. Okay, our I is 5. And we can see it's in output. And then it increments by 1. 5 plus 1 is 6. It goes to this while loop again, to this condition, and compares 6. We have 6 now, right? Is 6 less or equals 5? False. So what happens? It just exits while loop. Nothing more happens. So you can see our output is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's do another example of while loop. Let's say I want to start with 5, count down till 1 and print I. So I start with 5, while I greater or equals 1, while this condition is true, I'm going to print I. Of course, in this case, I'm going to decrement 1 by 1. So let's see what happens. Compile, run, and it prints 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So let's see what happens with our while loop and with our program. I start with 5, You can see I is 5 here. Is 5 greater or equals 1? True. So print I. I'm going to do it here. And then I minus minus. What it means? I minus minus is I minus 1. So 5 minus 1 is 4. So our 5 or our I becomes 4. I go to while loop again to this condition, and is 4 greater or equals 1? That's true. So print I, we print 4, and 4 minus 1 is 3. So our I becomes 3. Is 3 greater or equals 1? True. So print I. I'm going to print 3. I minus 1 minus 3 minus 1 is 2. So our I becomes 2. Is 2 greater or equals 1? True. Print 2, and 2 minus 1 is 1. So our I is 1. Is I greater or equals 1? True. 1 equals 1, right? That's true. So print, and then decrement, which is I minus 1 is 0. Is 0 equals or greater than 1? False. So our program just ends. No output here. So, and our output 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's do another scenario. Let's say I want to start at 5, count to 25, and increment by 5. So this time I want to increment by 5. I don't want to go each iteration. I want to skip some of them. It depends on what we want to do with our while loop. So I start with at 5. I have while loop, and my condition would be if I less or equals 25, because I'm going to count to 25. Then print something. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to print 5, then 10, 15, 20, and 25. So let's see. And of course, just like I said, I'm going to increment not by 1, but by 5. So let's see how it works. Compile, run, and I have printed 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25. Let's see how it actually works. So I start with 5. I is 5. 5 is less or equals 25? True. So print I, which is 5, and then increment by 5. So 5 plus 5 is 10. So now my I became 10. Is 10 less or equals 25? True. So print 10, and then 10 plus 5, 15. So my I becomes 15. So what is next? Next I go to while loop again, and 15 is less or equals 25? True. Then print it. 15 plus 5 will be 20. My I becomes 20. 20 is less or equals 25, true. Print 20 plus 5 is 25. Is 25 less or equals 25? True. Printed. Then increment by 5. 25 plus 5 is 30. Is 30 less or equals 25? False. So just end the program. We do not print it. So here's my output: 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So now you just learned how while loop works and what actually happens inside while loop and so on. But you might wonder, why do you even need to bother with while loop? Let's take a look at this example. I want to print hello, and we all know how to do it, so there's not a big deal. Compile, run, and you can see output hello. But what if I need to print it 2 times? Do I need to type it again? Well, let's see. 2 times. What if I need to print it 4 times? Or 6 times? Can I do this? Of course I can. But what if I need to print it 100 times, 1000 times? It's not like I'm going to print it or to type it all the time. That's exactly why I need while loop. So let's write a while loop to print hello world 5 times. So we start with 1. While I less or equals 5, print it, and then increment I 1 by 1. Let's see. Compile, run, and we printed hello 5 times. Of course, I can do 10, or I can do 100, and so on. So that's the entire point. Of course, it doesn't mean the entire point to print. Just remember, here you can do many different things. Anything you want to do, maybe some calculation, maybe, I don't know, something else. We will see more examples later on. Another thing which I would like to mention, be careful where you increment your loop. Let's go back to the first example where we printed from 1 to 5. If I switch places of incrementing and print statement, let's see what happens. Compile, run, and it prints 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Why it happens? Because first you increment, your I is 1. Then the first thing you do, you increment it by 1, and now it's 2. And what do you print? You print 2 here. And then, while is true, you increment it again, so now it's 3. It means you print 3, and so on. So just be aware or be careful. I'm not saying it's illegal, sometimes you really need to do this, but you should understand that if you increment first and then you use it, it's already going to be incremented. Let's just summarize what we learned about while loop so far. While loop repetition of a process. Either you print in something or you do anything else. Inside while loop, it's all about repetition. Another word for looping is iteration, and it consists of three parts, which is start, condition, and increment. Placement of how the loop increments matters, I just showed it to you. And be aware of common mistakes like semicolon here, while loop cannot have semicolon here. Otherwise your while loop will never be started, so it will end right away. Just like with if statements, remember? So, and of course, be careful with your condition because you don't want to deal with infinite while loop. Another type of loop that we are going to cover today is do while loop. It's very similar to while loop, but just has some different syntax. So the do while loop is a post-test loop, which means it will execute the loop prior to testing the condition. If you remember while loop, first you evaluate the condition, which is while and then condition in parentheses. And after this, you do something, you print or you do some other operations there. But with do while loop, first you do something and then the condition is to be evaluated. So the do while loop, sometimes called a do loop, takes the form do, keyword do, then statement which you want to do, and then while condition. So here's a very important difference. You can notice here semicolon. In while loop you do not have semicolon, but in do while loop it should be there, it must be there, because that's how you end your loop. You already did here everything you wanted and then you end your loop. But remember, with while loop it would be mistake because it would never go inside while loop. But with do while loop you have to have this semicolon here. And let's take a look at this flowchart. So we start here, we have statement, whatever we want to do, then it goes to Boolean expression. If condition is true, it goes to the statement again and it does something, then condition is evaluated, and if it's true, and it continues looping. But once condition is false, it exits the loop. Let's write a do while loop which will start at 1, counts to 5 and increments by 1. It's exactly the same what we did with while loop, but this time we will do while loop. So we start at 1, then we have do keyword, and here goes any statement which we want to do, in this case I'm going to print I, just exactly like we did with while loop. I'm going to increment one by one, and that's our do statement here. That's what we do. We print, we increment. And now it's time for condition. So while and condition. Condition, of course, is going to be the same. While I less or equals than 5, and remember, we need to use semicolon here. And that's it. We are, just let me fix it. Okay. Compile, run, and we printed 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's see how it works here. So start at 1, count to 5, increment by 1. And of course, just like with while loop, we need start and an increment. So start at 1. So it means our I is 1. Do print I. So output will be 1 because I is 1. And then increment I plus plus, which means 1 plus 1. Now our I is 2. And then it goes to while condition to check if I less or equals 5. So 2 less or equals 5, true. So it goes here again and do something. And in this case, it prints I. So it will print 2 and then I plus plus, which means 2 plus 1, which is 3. Now our I is 3. While 3 less or equals 5, true, true. So now do this. Print I, and it's going to print 3, and then I plus plus, which is 3 plus 1, which is 4. So now our I became 4. While 4 less or equals 5, true. So it goes to do statement. And we print it here, so it's 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. Now our I is 5. Uh, 5 is less or greater than 5? True. So go here, print 5, and I plus plus is 6. But the condition is not true. 6 is not less or equals 5, so it doesn't do anything else. It just quit the loop. So we have our output 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now let's start with 5. Count down to 1 and decrement by 1. So just like I said, we start with 5, and you probably already know the output, right? It's going to be 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So what we're going to do here, we're going to print, we are going to print I, then we are going to decrement by 1, which means I minus 1, and that's all what we are going to do. And of course we need our while loop with a condition, and condition will be while I greater or equals 1, and end the loop. So again, do something while condition is true. Let's compile it, run, and we can see the output 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So while I greater or equals 1, we do this. And in this case, we print and decrement. Let's see how it works. So we start with 5 and count down to 1, decrement by 1. So do print I. Our I is 5 and we print I, which is 5. Then decrement by 1. 5 minus 1 is 4. 4 is greater or equals 1, true. So print I, which is 4, and decrement by 1. 4 minus 1 is 3. 3 greater or equals 1, true. So print I, which is 3, and decrement it. 3 minus 1 is 2. Our I becomes 2. 2 greater or less or greater or equals 1, true. So print it, decrement by 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. Our I becomes 1. 1 is greater or equals 1, true. 1 equals 1. So print I and decrement by 1. Print 1, and 1 minus 1 is 0. 0 greater or equals 1, false. So just quit the loop. And here's our output: 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's do another example where we will start at 5, count till 25, and increment by 5. So int I is 5, that's where we are going to start, and do what I'm going to do. I'm going still to print I, print line I, increment by 5. So remember, it means I plus 5. Like this. Okay, we are done with do, and now our condition: while I less or equals 25. And do not forget semicolon. Okay, let's compile and run, and we can see we print 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25. So let's see how it happens again. So we start at 5. I is 5. Print I. I'm going to print it. I plus equals 5 means I plus 5. So 5 plus 5 is 10. Now we need to check condition. 10 is less or equals 25. It's true. Then go to do statement. And you are required to print it, right? 10. And then increment by 5. 10 plus 5 is 15. And our I becomes 15. Then condition 15 is less or equals 25, which is true. Then print I, which is 15, and then increment 15 by 5. So it's 20. Our I is 20 now. Check the condition. 20 is less or equals 25. Is it true? So go here, print I, which is 20, and increment by 5, which is 25. 25 is less or equals 25. Yes, that's true. So print I, which is 25, and increment I by 5. 25 plus 5 is 30. And let's check if it's true. 30 less or equals 25, false. So just quit the do while loop. And your result is 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25. Of course, if I don't want to print I, for example, let's say I want to print hello, I will just print hello here and increment by 1. So let's start with 1 till 25. Compile, run, and you can see here 25 hellos. So let's do 5. Compile, run, and it's just 5. So we started 1. We print hello while this condition is true. And of course, we do not forget to increment. In this example, it's by 1. So if I want to increment it by 5, I can do it. I'm going to start with 5. Okay. Compile, run, and I get 5 hellos. Why 5? Because I start with 5 and I increment with each iteration. I increment by 5. So it's 5 hellos until 25. Just for a brief summary of the do-while loop. Do-while loop uses a keyword do in syntax. Condition is checked at the end of the loop. Remember, in while loop, it's checked at the beginning of the loop, and here it's at the end. And semicolon is required at the end of the loop. Also consists of 3 parts, which is start, end, and increment.